Thank you. That's very good. I listened to Mr. Van Dijk's story, and I do see some common ground because at least the migration problem is recognized as a major issue, an untenable situation. But what I don't understand is why the SGP then says we need to have a net migration of 0. Because net migration, of course, is the number of people coming in minus the number of people leaving. And we know there are all kinds of Dutch people who leave, including successful Dutch people who leave, and you can't just offset those against each other. It's actually, as Martin Bosma said, the demographic turntable. You actually have to add them together. The fewer native Dutch people there are, the greater the impact of all those people who come here. And the faster we are replaced, the faster we actually dilute our identity and our population homeopathically, to the point that there are no Dutch people left here. Why does the SGP limit itself to just this point about migration? And why have you so far not supported our position that there should be a remigration program to correct the damage caused by 30 or 40 years of open borders policy? Because as far as I can tell, when I listen to your story, I think we actually agree that this really isn't good, that our culture is disappearing, that we're losing our country. But why not actually come up with policies that correct this?
I'm going to interrupt you for a moment. I think that's already 2 interruptions. That's 3 interruptions, but that's okay. But I have a point of order from Ms. Pierig.
Yes, Chair. My point wasn't that it was too long, but that it was too racist. We're hearing a colleague here talk about homeopathic dilution, about replacement theories, and I also expect the Chair to intervene when these kinds of terrible things are being said in this chamber.
And I wholeheartedly support this.
Yes? No, absolutely not. I also find it truly absurd. We not only have freedom of speech here in the House of Representatives, we also have constitutional immunity. We say what we think, and I am asking a question about that. It is very important to also hear the SGP's view on this. And we will see what the Dutch voters think about this on October 29th.
May I ask you, given the atmosphere here as well, since there are so many objections to your statements, whether you would refrain from using these words any further?
Which words exactly?
Well, you know very well which ones. I think there is no doubt about that among all of us here. So could you perhaps...
So words like replacement, homeopathic dilution, things like that?
I understand that it is not customary in these circles to use such words.
Well, if Dutch voters want to hear this more often, they know what to do on October 29th. But honestly, I think it's nonsense. But ma'am, we won't be seeing you again anyway.
I will take away your right to speak if you talk over me. That is not the intention. I kindly ask you to please watch your language. And if we can continue in that way, I think that would be good.
I'm perfectly willing to observe proper standards of decency. And I believe I also treat people who think differently with respect. But this is simply about the substance of not just an opinion, but an actual observation.
Mr. Baudet, may I remind you that you are a guest in this committee today. You have been admitted. People have been very generous and have not said, we don't want Baudet here. You are more than welcome, but I would appreciate it if you would conform to the atmosphere that is normally present in this committee, and therefore not use this kind of language. In the plenary hall, you can settle that with Mr. Bosma, but here I will no longer tolerate it. So I would like you to just try to moderate your language a bit. You can phrase it differently, you can say whatever you want, but there are certain words that people take offense to, and that's not what we're here for. We're here to debate, not just to annoy each other.
Okay, can you give me a few suggestions on how I could rephrase the word omvolking? Come on, let's go. I'm being asked to rephrase it. If I get a good suggestion for that, would I use it?
You are responsible for your own words.
Okay.
I can suggest a word, but you are completely free to decide for yourself. But if you keep doing things like this, I will have to intervene. Yes, that's it for now. Just for Mr. Papiran's information, you came in a bit later. You do indeed have 4 interruptions. But the interruptions are limited to 45 seconds each. If you go over that, they will count double. Or triple, depending on how long you take. I just needed to mention that because you hadn't heard it yet.
Thank you, Chair, and I will try to respond to this. Of course, a lot has been said and asked by Mr. Baudet. First of all, we are in fact dealing with demographic changes, which also have consequences for our culture. And it is well known the SGP is certainly not waiting for further Islamization, but neither for further secularization of our country. Everyone knows where we stand on this, And it is true, I do want to point that out. We really do have problems here, even in my view. How do we deal with new cultures? And that is precisely why it is such a shame when we pollute the discussion with terms that reek of a very dark past. That's a shame, because to me the problem is seen in a broader context. And let's make sure we address this with each other very seriously. And that's also how I would like to respond. My remark about possibly even towards zero is mainly to illustrate this point. It seems to be quite widely shared. Okay, up to 40,000, 70,000 newcomers per year on balance. We can all handle that, apparently. But even that is a city the size of Gouda. And that's why, towards zero, then the point of remigration. Indeed, the SP believes that we already have our hands full just trying to reduce the inflow. And on that point, the SP might actually take a different stance than the FVD. The people who have come here legitimately, who simply have the right, should also be able to participate here decently. And we shouldn't hang that over their heads. Basically saying you don't really belong here and we'd actually prefer if you left again. Yes, that doesn't help integration either. So that's why we focus on the inflow, to get control over that.
Thank you. You have a follow-up question.
That's allowed, right? I still have one more.
You have one more. Yes, that's correct. 45 seconds.
But it's precisely that integration that in many cases doesn't work. Not even in the second generation. Not even in the third generation. Many of those people themselves also indicate that they would like to return. And research shows these groups, even in the second and third generation, Africans, you name it, cost us tens of thousands of euros in social costs. Crime, social security, overburdening of healthcare, learning deficits, you name it. And so it could actually be a win-win situation if you give these people money to leave again. That is something that, on balance, is much better for the Dutch economy. These people are very willing to accept that. More than willing to build a new life in their countries of origin with the help of remigration coaches. So what exactly is the problem with that?
Well, the way Mr. Baudet approaches it, as if it's about people who themselves decide, no, this is not my future. My future lies entirely elsewhere. Yes, those people have complete freedom to do so. And if we can help with that in any way, that's not a problem. What I'm talking about is, how do we deal with the people who are rightfully here? And you shouldn't hang over their heads the idea that you'd actually rather see them gone. That doesn't help with integration. Then there's the other point that Mr. Treg mentioned, that even in the second and third generation, people still don't seem to integrate. We wholeheartedly share that concern. And I'd like to add something right away. To connect to my first question, for me, as a Christian politician, the question is also, what exactly are these people supposed to integrate into? We ourselves, as a people, hardly know anymore what we stand for. We have cut off our roots. And where do we stand now? How can people integrate into a vacuum?